Morning, everybody. It was our first night in a hospice last night, and we have adjusted remarkably well. I am surprised at how normal and, I don't know if I can say normal, comfortable it was. Maybe because this is an actual home, not a hospital, and I was able to sleep in the same room as Richie. I used my cousin's cot. It was very comfortable. I slept through the night. Now I'm drinking my coffee, and even having the two neighbors we have in the other room, it feels all right. Last week I admitted I was freaking out a bit at the idea of it, but now it's like it is just like the hospital, and I even feel like if I got the chance to talk to them, I probably would, just to know what's the story. I'm really curious. Because I'm curious about everything. And we have this nice deck here. There's no chairs or anything. So that's a bummer. But my brother just got some painkiller. He was feeling a little bit of pain, and he took his other meds. So I'm just hoping that doesn't affect how it doesn't make him sleepy all day, in other words, because they're coming at 10, and I'm pretty sure he'll be alright. I'll just let him be for now. That's why I'm out here. Plus, I want to drink my coffee in the open air and enjoy the morning.
Hold or tuck out, so you got that, and you got the bags are there in your G2. Okay. Do you want to sit on this?
Yeah.
This way? Wait. You want to pull forward a little? I'm a big, strong guy. I don't know if any other people could do what I'm going to be doing with him, so, getting him out is a lot easier than getting him in, obviously. Just as long as you let us know when you want to. It is lower, too. Legs here. Okay. I put the lock on this side. I guess we'll move it up. That last one shoe there. Okay. Now you guys are going to the train station?
Yeah, Virginia City.
Okay. India. You seem like you're pretty strong. You can do what he helps a lot. He's pretty light. We got it.
but his bag is driving. Is that a...
Oh,
Probably not.
I'm just seeing up and out. Huh? Oh, okay.
Over here. Are you guys coming back on Saturday?
Yeah.
I'm glad you came today. I thought you, I assumed you wouldn't be able to make it.
Today,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, the other train already took off. How long are we waiting here? Here? You've been here running around town. Oh, okay.
Large active dog, especially when you're that size.
Last one coming up. Just keep on hugging me. You guys are amazing. How you doing?
Okay. Thank you.
Let's go to the right. Right. My gosh, huh? A couple of years ago when we had the Lake Allenor and the Lake Tahoe, it was so bad.
I remember I met a lady in Costco one time who lived in the Bay. We'd been out of the country for a number of years, so we didn't really know.
Profitable short line railroad. Happy to have you guys with us this afternoon, and we're going to have a very safe trip down to Gold Hill and back. This beautiful old railroad was first constructed way back in 1869, so that means this year we are exactly 155 years old. I know it looks like it, but no, this is not the original crew. Half those people are dead. California really didn't have any choice in the matter. They had to build the railroad because they had already repossessed too many mines. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Rule number 3 is the only one that talks has the microphone. That's right. Yeah, the bank owned all of these repossessed mines, so they built the railroad to get the ore all the way down to the Carson River Canyon, where they also had the stamp mills. If you can see me right now, I'm pointing to the east. 1,000 yards to the east over there, you see a great big pile of dirt. It's a dead giveaway. It's a deep mine shaft. They started digging that mine in 1875. They called it the Combination because it was actually a joint venture of 3 individual companies. Those 3 companies worked together in that mine for 10 years. That's not true. They worked together for about 10 minutes. After that, every day was contentious. There was no cooperation at all. That's why they never made any money. And they never paid any dividends either. When they gave up on the combination, they were only 30 feet short of being the deepest mine shaft in the entire world, 3,265 feet deep. Every day they'd been pumping 2 million gallons of water out of it, just so they could go deeper. Well, when they quit pumping the water, within 36 hours, so much had flowed back in, it actually rose up to at the 2,400 foot level. So it flooded a lot of mines right here. So what they ended up with over there was the deepest, most expensive, and totally worthless well in the world. That building is the Comstock Gold Mill, the very last mill built. Now we're going to go under a little wooden trestle. Look how close the trestle braces are as we go by. The trestle was built here because there were mines on both sides of the tracks, and this allowed the miners to push their small ore cars right over to the center and then dump them into the cars of the B&T. A couple of superintendents working right there were John Mackey and James Fair. They went uptown, they very quietly began to purchase old abandoned mines all around the Consolidated Virginia mine. That's where, 30 days later, they would discover what everybody would call the big bonanza. They found a ledge of silver ore 40 feet thick. Set a world record. It's never been broken. At the time, silver was assaying for about $8 a ton. Well, almost overnight, that price skyrocketed to $1,100, and that made John Mackey very happy, because it also made John Mackey one of the wealthiest men in the entire world. Later, he would be very instrumental in the construction of both the transatlantic and trans-Pacific telegraph lines. He had an ongoing feud with a communications magnate named Jay Gould, but Mackey beat him at every opportunity. John Mackey and his wife Marie were extremely generous with their money. They built schools, hospitals, even some places churches. Mackey would easily earn the nickname the mining millionaire of the Comstock, because even after he had all that money, he still would occasionally go down and work a little bit with the guys in the mines, because he had always enjoyed that hard work. That's where our shop is. That's exactly where it was 155 years ago, too. See those green coach cars? They're Hollywood famous. I'm going to tell you what movie they were in on the way back. There's a little hole in the ground right there, no big deal, except it's almost under our tracks. That little hole is 1,800 feet deep. It's the Julia mine, named for Julia Boulay, and she, of course, was one of a small handful of what we're going to call sporting women. Sadly, she met a very untimely death. The little coward that did her in was caught just 3 days later. He'd already spent all of her money and had pawned all of her jewelry, and now he was actually trying to sell some of her very elegant gowns. Well, the storekeeper that had sold them to Julia easily recognized the gowns, and she was able to identify this guy. So they dragged him uptown. They gave him a very fair trial. It lasted almost 8 minutes, and then they hung him. Virginia City waited a month to have Julia's funeral. The reason was this. She had known so many heads of state and dignitaries from all around the world, and they requested enough time to be able to travel back here and pay their final respects in person. It was a remarkable week on the Comstock, according to the Territorial Enterprise. By the way, Julia was the only woman of that profession to be buried in that cemetery. And here's a side note. They used to have to continually move her final resting place because of souvenir hunters and scavengers. It's pretty disgusting. That used to be tunnel number 5. When the highway department built the truck route, they dynamited the roof off and put in that steel crossing. The truck route's that highway across the ravine you see. Every year, we close that highway for 2 days and we have a car race on it. The name of the event is the Virginia City Hill Climb, and it's always well attended by and normally even sponsored by the Ferrari Car Club of North America. You don't have to have a Ferrari to be in that race, but it never hurts to have a Ferrari. Last year's winner was a woman, and she was driving a red Ferrari Spider. I don't know if you've ever driven up and down that little mountain highway, but there are very few straightaways on it, and they still clocked her at 122 miles an hour last summer.
Damn.
She was a red blur over there. We literally could see her coming around that corner before we could hear the car. And then zzz. You just can't believe it until you watch it. Right here on both sides of the tracks we have 2 of our state trees. We have our pinyon pines and mountain junipers. These pinyon pines would offer up the staple for both the Washoe and Paiute Indian diets in the form of pine nuts. Can you guys think of anything that we still make with pine nuts? Pesto is the only thing I know. Why on earth do we bother to harvest juniper berries? What do we get? You guys didn't do the homework, did you? Gin, that's where gin comes from. Juniper berries, yeah? Okay, now I'm going to try very hard to adequately describe what life was like for a miner. Ready? Horrible. Every mine of any depth had air temperatures of 140 degrees and they all had water in them. The water temperature would be 190. These guys could only work 15 minutes, they'd start to slump. If they were lucky, somebody would throw water on them. They would do that sometimes 7 days a week because at the end of every shift they were paid $4. Made them by far the highest paid miners in the world. $3 took care of their room for a week. 25 cents got them a gallon of Old Tub whiskey. That was actually the original Jim Beam brand, Old Tub. 10 cents would get them a fresh hot bath once a week. Here comes our second tunnel. This is actually our first real tunnel, and believe it or not, this is tunnel number 4. That only confused me for about the first 5 years. There were 6 tunnels for the VNT. Tunnel 4 here is 417 feet long. It's not our longest. Tunnel number 2 down in American Flat is 600 feet long. Feels pretty good in here, doesn't it? Can you imagine how nice it is to be in tunnel 6? And it has a little curvature to it, so you can't even see the light at either end of that tunnel. Once we clear this tunnel, if you look right over here to the west, running right alongside the tunnel, you're going to see a little dirt road. That is actually part of the original wagon toll road to Virginia City. Right there. That's how the freight wagons and stagecoaches used to get up and down the mountain. In a minute, we're going to go around what's left of Tunnel 3. Never will go through it. It was a nightmare for the original VNT. They used to run trains right down to the entrance of the tunnel, and then they would stop, and the crews would have to jump off, run into the tunnel, and quickly shovel away anything that had fallen. And they had to do the same thing on the return trip. And the VNT used to run as many as 40 trains a day. It's a lot of shoveling. Those crews would get real excited when they looked back and noticed they had what was called a mixed consist. That meant freight cars and passenger cars. They'd go running back to the passenger cars and try and coax you guys in to help shovel. No thank you. Right there is what's left of Tunnel 3, and you can see that it still caves in a little bit more all the time. Our boss told us last summer that was the home to a couple of mountain lions. We're now on a permanent detour, or shoe fly, going around that tunnel. The good news is, this shoe fly allows us to work our way right down into Gold Hill, and there's still some prominent buildings you're going to see down there. First one you're going to notice is the long sloping steel roof of the Crown Point Mill, and it sits directly under the Crown Point mine. Working your way up the main street, as it was called, the Maynard Block, you would then come to the Gold Hill Hotel and Saloon, one of the finest of the West, and that's the oldest hotel in continuous operation in the entire state of Nevada. The last building in the block down there is where the Bank of California was. 3 months after they completed this railroad, the boys of the bank were enjoying a profit. $400,000 every single month. Every month. In today's money, that would be almost $74 million a month. That's a pretty profitable little railroad. You're going to see a bell hanging in a tower here, and it used to hang above the Liberty Firehouse. It was just down the highway, about 3.5 blocks. This is a monument to all of those volunteer firefighters. Anybody want to guess what happened to the firehouse? No, that would have been a great story. Actually, one day high wind blew it over. All we have left is that stupid bell. In about a month, you're going to see a little herd of deer under those trees. They come up every day and they steal fruit from the orchard right behind it. Then they come back around and lay in those trees and just watch us go back and forth until one day before hunting season, and then they're gone. Right up there is where the first major gold discoveries were made too. Back in 1869, that's why they call this area Gold Hill. That little depot that we just passed was sold to Story County in 1947. They paid $1 for it. That's when the V&T was no longer the money printing machine that it had been, and they started to sell off all of the assets because they knew the end was near. That depot has been completely rebuilt on the inside. We use it for an awful lot of our own events. Excuse me. If you guys come back for the Christmas holidays, we're going to bring you down here on what we call the Candy Cane Express. And we're going to stop there because at that time that depot has been magically transformed into Santa's toy shop. And all the elves are outside building toys. And then Santa Claus steps out and he greets each one of the little kids by their first name. Talk about something amazing when that happens. Several famous mines right here in Gold Hill. We just passed one of them. Right back here on the hill behind us. Can you guys see that wooden ore chute? Looks like the world's most uncomfortable playground slide. That is the Cane Tuck. Anywhere else they would have called that the Kentucky mine. That's actually where John Mackey and his partners first became the owners of a mine. Here's how they did it. They worked that horrible, brutal 8-hour shift and they got the $4. And then they worked another one. Another 8-hour shift. This time they were paid in what was called feet. Every mine had feet. And it had nothing to do with the depth. A foot was a share of ownership. Well, by working a bunch of those double shifts, Mackey and his 3 partners became the owners of the Cane Tuck. And then luckily for them, over the next couple of years, that was the most productive mine of the entire Comstock lode. When it was all said and done, In today's monetary terms, they would have removed about 18 billion in gold and silver from that mine alone. Now, the most famous mine of Gold Hill is that little one right down there. There's a structure down there that looks like it's been dipped in concrete. It's got the two big wheels on the top of it. Those wheels are part of the hoist mechanism, and that's the Yellow Jacket mine. Every bit of its fame and notoriety came as a result of the worst mining disaster to ever hit Nevada's mining industry. On the morning of April 7th, 1869, at 7 a.m., a fire broke out 800 feet below the surface. Sadly, 35 miners had already entered the mine and they were clear at the bottom below the fire, and they were trying to go to work. Well, long story short, all 35 died in the fire. Fire burned for 3 solid years. When it was finally safe enough to go back into the Yellow Jacket, of the 35 miners that had perished, they could only recover 26 bodies. You'd think, well, that can't get any worse than that. And yet it does. Killed in that horrible fire that morning were 3 very young brothers of the Bacall family of Virginia City, and that was the first time they'd ever had the chance to work in that mine on the same shift. Now, it doesn't get any worse than that, right? Everybody's just nice and polite and seated. Let's go back. Highball. Maybe not locals. First of all, thanks for coming to visit, but we're having the same type of summer we had 2 years ago. It got too hot, too dry, too fast, 2 fires. Lake Tahoe fire, Lake Almanor fire. I got to be honest, I didn't know lakes were that flammable, but apparently they are. The smoke was so thick here, and this is the truth, you could barely see outside these cars. People still kept showing up, wanted to ride the train, and we kept running trains. We had an order from the boss. We had to monitor the air quality index all day long. If we got to 500, we were not going to run any trains. We kept bumping up to 495, pretty close. The scariest part of the whole thing was people were bringing babies and old people with, you know, chronic health issues, respiratory issues. They came out and wanted to ride the train. It was horrible. We're right in the middle of a very tight 14-degree curve. Now, they don't build them like this anymore. They can't. Today's modern, much longer rail cars would never make it around that little curve. They'd just bind up and stop. Wouldn't go. Right there in that little hill in front of us, you're going to see a great big hole. It's all covered in soot. That's proof that steam locomotives did go through Tunnel 3. This is the other end of that collapsed tunnel we saw. It's going to come up very close to this side of the car as we go by it. No self-respecting diesel would leave a mess like that in a tunnel. This diesel is our D3. She was born in 1950. She's also a 45-ton switch engine, and last but not least, she is a very proud retired member of the United States Marine Corps. Hoorah! Last summer, we had the honor of hosting a trip that had 87 retired Marine vets, men and women. You should have heard the hoorah that morning. Our most famous locomotive has to be, well, 2 of them really, the 18 and the 29, both of them steam. Not too long ago, we sent the number 18 to Hollywood to star in the movie Water for Elephants. You guys remember that movie? About the circus train? This year, we sent the number 29 in those green coach cars to Oklahoma to star in Killers of the Flower Moon. You'll see all of our equipment at the very beginning of that movie. Now we recently got some more exciting news. At the end of October, we're going to send a bunch of our equipment to Butte, Montana, and they're all going to star in the 3rd season of Yellowstone. The first year they called it Yellowstone. The second year they got a little confused. They went backward and called it 1823. As I understand it, this year they're even more confused. They're going to go forward and call it 1923, and I don't care if they ever get the year right. I really don't. All we care about is having our equipment in that series. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to go back through Tunnel 4. When we follow the diesel, it's no big deal. When we follow a steam locomotive, really big deal. First of all, the temperature of the tunnel goes up about 45 degrees, and then you get all that hot smoke and soot going through the cars. Last summer, the only good thing about the pandemic was the fact that you all had masks, and so I would tell you to put them on. There was a day when there was a woman way in the back corner, and she never did find her mask, and at the very last minute, she just flipped her t-shirt up over her head. Mardi Gras, that's what I thought. Once we clear the tunnel, if you look over here to the east, you're going to see a couple of big piles of gray dirt. Those are the tailings of the Foreman mine. They ceased operations way back in 1941 because of the outbreak of World War II. That's the mine they're trying to reopen. That's why there's a little bit of equipment on the top of it. Earlier this spring, we watched them doing a lot of helicopter surveys above it, and they were using a technology called LiDAR. That allows them to look down into the mine and determine the mineral content and just how much and how deep they're going to have to go after it. They'll get it open. They spend a lot of money. There's another little mine right up at the end of this ravine, and it was named after a very famous stage actress back in the day. Her name was Emily Ward, and so sadly, they called this the Ward Bullion Mine. Now I say sadly because they dug this mine every single day for 3.5 years, and they never found 1 ounce of valuable ore, much less bullion. Why on earth would they keep digging? Well, here's why. Because that way they could keep selling you very inflated but totally worthless mining stock. Everybody did it. Most popular game ever. There's no other way to put it. That was just simple, outright stock fraud. And that fraud is what established the city of San Francisco and the Board of Exchanges. That exchange would create and destroy millionaires on a real frequent basis because of all the stock fraud right there. Right there, that's the Ward Bullion Mine. What looks like a rock wall at the end of it here is actually the stone foundation for the hoist or the head frame. Now, she wasn't the worst offender in that game, but she played it very, very well. A lot of people on the Comstock were financially destroyed because they invested in some of these mines too. The state of Nevada finally stepped in and began to pass some of the strongest mining laws of the nation. Too little, too late. They've got a mule over there. Apparently he's shy today. We've seen him once or twice. Well, I got to tell you, that's the biggest mule I've ever seen. He is 18 hands high. What that means is his shoulders are right at 6 feet. Shoulders. It's a big mule. That's actually the size of a typical Kentucky thoroughbred race. That's how big it is. This is the most panoramic view we have of the Comstock. Up here, a little ways up the hill on the west side of our tracks, you're going to see a large Victorian-style building. That's the Fourth Ward School. That was one of the finest of the Old West, and it more than rivaled anything that existed in Denver or San Francisco. This is the first school this side of the Mississippi River to have indoor plumbing, too. Directly in front of us now are those two beautiful churches. The big church is the Catholic Church. It's called St. Mary's of the Mountains. And then the smaller church below it is St. Paul's Episcopal Church. St. Mary's was destroyed in the fire of 1875. They actually used it as a fire break. Now St. Paul's was lucky. It was relatively unscathed by the fire, so everything up there is original. There was so much wealth up here at the time. Within 1 year, everything that had been lost in the fire was rebuilt, including St. Mary's. When I say wealth, there were more millionaires living right here than any city in the entire world. 195 of them. This was absolutely the financial capital of the Western world for years. Up here on the hill above us in just a minute, you're going to see a big white sign that says Call or Mine Tour. I don't think it's open today, but when he is, that is a beautiful tour to take for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a horizontal line, so it's nice and cool on a hot day. And number two, you can actually go back in there a couple of 100 feet. If you're claustrophobic, don't go. If you're over 5'5", when he offers you the hard hat, take it. You'll be glad. See the fenced arena right there? In September, we're going to have our famous camel race. No, you do not bring your camels from home. We'll already have them here. And we also bring in the ostriches for kids like those two girls about that size to race on. Yeah. Last summer there were 2 Australian emus up here running. You guys ever seen an emu run? That is the dumbest looking animal when it runs. I don't know why they're not extinct. Anything to catch and eat an emu. I had a guy the other day from Australia, and he said, "Mate, you don't ever want to eat one of those emu eggs. They're horrible. They taste like..." I'm not going to repeat what he said. So I'm pretty sure I don't ever want to try that. That little cone-shaped hill out there between those two mountain ranges is called Sugarloaf. And uptown, they're going to tell you that begins a 100-mile view. I'm not convinced that you can see 100 miles. You can see a long way. I'll tell you what I am convinced of. That is the most beautiful place in the world when the sun sets on it. You wouldn't believe the colors that are out there. Okay, there's still Lake Tahoe and Hawaii, but it's still a pretty nice view at sunset. Up here on the hill above us, you'll be able to see the very back of the Mackey Mansion. It was a beautiful home when they built it. It's still a beautiful home. John Mackey's wife had the horrible job of having to travel all over the world and buy whatever she wanted to furnish the mansion. She brought back things people had never even heard of. If you're looking for ghosts, there's 3 of them in the Mackey Mansion. Well, this 6th trip is almost over. You guys have been great, and that's why I enjoy the job so much. I also want you to know we never ever lose sight of the fact that without your support and your incredible generosity, we couldn't do this. But because of people like you and people like you, this is now our 48th consecutive year, and we're going to make you a promise. You keep supporting us like you have, we're going to keep running these trains. So on behalf of the entire V&T family, thanks for joining us. Please travel safely and come back and see us again.
Thank you. Thank you. So how guys want to go?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go first.
It's just a joke. They actually, it starts to cool off, and then they start putting it back down at lower elevation.
Okay.
Try and come down backwards. Okay, I'll be here.
Okay.
I'll be here. Yeah. You hold him, and I'll steady you.
Yeah. Gravity helping.
You guys have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, man.
Out of the forest. One more.
I got you. Go ahead and
Ironically, my job used to be running all around these mountains. Yeah.
want to carry you or want to go down?
This is a great town to go around in. So they normally have a shuttle, although I have not seen it today, so maybe it's not right.
I haven't seen the shuttle today. No. Is it?
Back it up a little bit. Let's pull it back. There you go. It's got it.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Thanks, you.
I'll take a picture. Because the altitude. Yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah. I was like, that's cool. That's one less thing you have to worry about.
Yeah. Oh, it's got a little lip there. Yeah. Got it.
Popsicle. Where's Richie?
Oh yeah, he likes popsicles. I don't know what flavor though. Let me ask him.
He might like one. There's orange and
Richie, they have popsicles. Uncle David wants to get you one. We got grape.
And it's very cold.
You can let it melt a bit. It's really nice to be outside. It's nice seeing you outside.
But you didn't bring him last time, did you?
No, we did.
Oh, he's been there.
He actually went there twice within like 6 months time frame.
Did he like it? Does
He liked it. So yeah, with his mom, we could stay. Yeah.
You have more, you know, like pool.
Yeah, more amenities.
And everything, yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna enjoy it better.
So when we got to Manila, like I rented I got contact with a taxi driver from Facebook. And he
What's
took
your
us around.
opinion of the railroad trip?
The what?
The railroad trip. We just
Enjoyed it.
Did you learn anything that you didn't know before?
So my mom did cemetery in Boliches.
I guess it was all familiar, and the scenery as well.
I can't. I was like, there's no way.
How did you feel seeing it
Everything's
again?
changed, yeah. So like,
I felt like coming home.
crowded. Now,
Yeah.
well, no, because he's only based in Manila.
Do you want to do this again on Saturday?
He was presenting.
I think I want to go again.
He has a sideline. Yeah, there you go, there you go. Ready? These are the, yeah, they're haunting.
Yeah, I saw that episode too.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah.
Hey everyone! Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed experiencing it. I should add that yesterday morning, Wednesday morning, before the train ride, my brother slept most of the morning, but as soon as my cousins came over and it was time for him to get dressed, I can't tell you how happy and excited he was, and how nice it was to see him outside again in a normal setting and in a place he loved, in a place that brought back so many happy memories for him. You know, it just, the whole day made him so happy. And on to practical matters. I did get a chance to talk to my aunt and uncle during the day, and we were discussing the cost afterwards, because Richie has a plot in California, but since he wants to stay here till the end, the cost of taking care of him and transporting him over to California we estimate to be around $3,000, and so I know everyone here has already given time and again, so I am asking if it is at all possible for you to help. I can't tell you how much we would appreciate it, and how it would make things so much easier. And I mean, that goes without saying, right? But, and if you cannot help, don't worry about it, because I know if you're watching this, you are probably part of my brother's life, and he loves all of you, and he is so grateful for how you have made his life so happy. And so, yeah, long and short of it is, if you can help, we would deeply appreciate it. If not, thank you so much for being part of his life. And yeah, That's it. Thank you.